99.5, and just when I had a whole news day stacked full of really good stories today, and I thought we're finally going to get a break from this Nancy Guthrie case because there had just been, not to say the trail had gone cold, but in the news cycle there just wasn't many new developments. I thought, so we're going to give that thing a rest today. And then the authorities come out with this very ominous and frightening looking surveillance camera video from the home itself. It couldn't be more demonstrative of whatever was going on around that house that day. By now, you've probably heard this or you've seen these pictures. So we'll dig into some of that here as we get started. And I'm still live down on the coast. AJ, I got some new and improved camera shots of the beautiful water down here today. I actually climbed up there and put a tripod up and made the camera about 5 feet higher. So it looks good. I just had to swap it up. I couldn't get out and get on location anywhere yet. Still got some challenges to do that just yet. But yeah, we'll give y'all some beauty shots on the way in and out. Anything's better than looking at my big watermelon head on the live video stream. But y'all come and join us, and there I am in the mobile command unit getting things done down here on the coast. Now, let's go back to this Nancy Guthrie case and what we see today. I wasn't in front of a screen. I was actually driving back from grabbing some lunch when this came out. So I couldn't see it. I could only hear the news anchors describing it. And then I finally got a chance to see it. And if I can do my best to describe it, there are a couple of different videos. And apparently this information comes from what was considered to be, remember how when this broke, they said the cameras didn't capture anything. I mean, that was with the local authorities. And this is just creepy as hell, if you ask me. But that was the local authorities looking at whatever had been recorded by whatever camera system she had. But what really happens with a lot of our cameras is there's just this unending stream of data, and the camera itself doesn't always report to you everything that it sees, but sometimes it will flag stuff. And as long as that data is available, they can run that data and recreate the image. And that apparently is what the FBI did today. Our whole lives are under surveillance. So although the camera did not do what it was supposed to do, it was still there. The so-called hidden information, they call it, a very non-technical term. So they reproduced this video, and apparently authorities have had this for days. And what you need to know from the family perspective is the family has told authorities for days since these images were produced by the FBI that they don't recognize the person. Of course, the internet thinks they do because it's what the internet does. A lot of folks are pointing at Savannah Guthrie's brother-in-law still that they see images that look like him. I don't think we should go that far. I think the authorities, if they're onto him, they're onto him. So what do we see? We see this ominous character in a coat, gloves. It looks like boxing gloves almost, like he's got on 2 pair of gloves. You ever boxed on a punching bag? They almost look like punching bag gloves, but some people think they look like heavier gloves with latex gloves over the top. And this dude with a backpack with reflective straps. A lot of backpacks, hiking backpacks, have reflective straps on the shoulders. He's wearing a full ski mask type thing. It's just like something out of the movies. And he comes up to the camera that's right there on the doorbell. It's a doorbell camera. And he puts his gloved fist up to the doorbell camera, and he tries to block the camera with his hand. And then he goes back out and grabs some vegetation and brings it back up to the camera to try to cover the camera, which looks very clumsy and foolish. And one of the still shots from that shot, you can see his eyes. His pupils are dilated because it's dark. By the way, these are sort of those infrared camera images that always look creepy no matter. You ever caught an animal or something on your camera at night and they got those big white eyes and they look like they're possessed by the devil? Well, that's what those nighttime videos do when they bounce off your retinas. And so, dude, it's just creepy as all get out. Then there's another shot where he's sort of walking in and out of the there have been some still shots released that the FBI in particular thinks the public could use as clues. And then, of course, there's a shot of him. It's sort of a porch, almost like a portico kind of archway porch. And the dude walks up and starts messing around with the camera. Now, it adds to all of the craziness of this case. Just when you think, well, she's probably dead, it also tends to lend itself to the fact that no ransom was paid last night. And the deadline was not acknowledged. that may be a whole side crime of someone taking advantage of the situation to try to extort money. And you can bet the feds will be making a case there that whoever made that ransom demand may not be connected to the case. This person is awkward. I don't know. We're just reading into it with our own ability to use body language. And some of y'all may have seen it, and I welcome your thoughts on it. But we'll get into other headlines on the show today, too. But for now, this thing broke, and it just changed everything we thought in some ways about this case. So it's one or two things to me. It's either this activity was also staged to continue some kind of cover-up of something that happened to Nancy Guthrie. I'm not convinced that this is not also staged. The intentional effort to walk right up to the camera to look like a Hollywood, it's like off the set of Home Alone or something, that kind of house break-in. A person like this walking through your neighborhood would get immediate attention. Then again, this is a dark neighborhood with low light situations designed that way for privacy and to not create, as many of you know, not create light pollution. It's an Arizona thing. The houses are all situated sort of back in shrubbery and around corners, so they all have maximum privacy. So I guess a person could creep up. What you don't see in these videos is an automobile, and it's always been presumed that with her mobility, if someone took her from that home in this incident that we're seeing, they would have had some kind of method of transportation where they could have trucked her away from there that way. I don't know what to make of it. It is the most bizarre thing in the world. So it's either part of the cover-up, i.e. by the time this was created, the incident that either took her life or took her out of that home had already happened, or this was the person that broke in that house. Now, they're still calling the person that's on this video a person of interest, and they're just going to have to do that. That's just kind of lingo that the authorities are going to use until they, even though by every definition, this is a suspect. This is clearly a suspect in this case. But the family doesn't seem to know who they are, and the authorities got to a point where they decided that the public needed to see this to try to help. Now, we understand they've collected other video from service stations. There's a Circle K. There have been other things that have been collected. Now, I learned this today listening to police experts talk about the blood that was found outside the home, which, again, was traced back to being that of Nancy Guthrie. They said that they were, I guess you would call them low-altitude spatters. In other words, if this didn't drip a long distance, say, from a person's face down to the ground, that with low velocity means that blood came from somewhere closer to the ground. So was she being carried? Was it from a lower limb injury or something like that? I don't know. But that added a little bit more context to what the authorities are saying today. But, man, as soon as these videos came out, it hit the news like a bombshell, and everybody is hyperanalyzing based on their complete lack of expertise about all these matters. It's just what we do in the country. So if there's anything that's gleaned from this, or if this creates a break in the case today, we'll have it right off the top. It's what we do, chasing down the breaking news every single day here on the show. But we've got other stuff. We got Epstein stuff in the news. I'll just give you a little bit of a laundry list. And we'll throw the phone calls open early on this or anything else you have, 545-9950. By the way, not to leave AJ out of it, I know you're still getting set up, but have you seen this creepy video of this dude walking up to this house?
I did, and I was wondering because, that's one of the first things I've asked. I was like, you would think that, when you're dealing with someone of status, kind of like Savannah Guthrie, you would think that, especially with her mom, and her mom having been on her Today Show and having her on, that there would be some type of cameras there. I was like, there's got to be something. And it's kind of interesting that the law enforcement at first said, oh, well, there's nothing on there.
Yeah.
And they don't have, there was nothing that was captured. And then all of a sudden, you get these images coming out. And
well, it's that old hidden data thing. The FBI knows. To me, that's the part that, not to interrupt you, AJ, but that's the part that creeps me out the most. There's data of us moving through our lives that we don't even know exists. Like when our cameras catch something or don't catch something, just because your camera didn't report it in, and record it as an event around your house, doesn't mean that the data's not there what goes on around your house. Isn't that creepy? Like, I'm going to have to quit peeing in my yard. I'm just telling you. Sometimes I know where the cameras are and I'll walk around the corner. But I got to watch it now because the feds can find out. They can find out everything that happens around your house.
You know, that goes back to that song, I always feel like
somebody's watching me. That's the worst version we've ever done. Not bad. Dang, man. Okay, so now we got a person of interest. And let the conspiracy theories go wild. But what it doesn't tell us is whether or not this woman's alive. You know, and there's so many things we don't know. And I've heard more than one expert say the same things I've said, that they're just stumped by this. I got a good friend in town that reports on the news and covers crime, and we're all the same way. We're like, this just... None of this registers. There's no gut, despite experience or being a complete amateur at trying to sleuth cases. And it continues to drive attention on it, only because I think people always get caught up in a mystery. This is a whodunit, if there ever was one, playing out just like a movie script right in front of the rest of us. So we've got a long way to go through the rest of the afternoon, and inevitably, if there are any statements, reaction to this video, events, more stuff put out by the family, whatever goes down, of course, we'll have it live as we roll through the afternoon. Lonnie's Furniture Company bringing you the show tonight. I'll give you the laundry list with everything else when we come back. We'll just go on and get the break in here. But Lonnie's, I'm telling you, man, this is a great place to get anything you need for your home. Maybe you just need a lamp. One of my favorite stories about them lately came from a caller, and it was the saddest story, but it says a lot about the character of the store. He said, I had a dog, and I'm paraphrasing, and it was a dog he'd had for years. The dog passed away, and he had this rug in his house that he really liked. It's where the dog always laid and slept, had a little worn spot. And now that the dog was passed away, he needed to replace his rug. And he goes to Lania's because he listens to the show, and they had this exact same rug, and he wanted it because it matched. Well, he told them the story, and, of course, they gave him a discount and helped him get it delivered and get it to his house. And that's just the kind of people they are. They really do. They want to make a sale. They're in business. They want to make sales. But they want you to be happy, because happy customers give you more sales. Old school business, right? We used to understand that with people that public, and we need to get back to that. Just putting the customer first, over-serving everybody, giving the best deals you can. That's how they've been around for 92 years, slinging furniture. Y'all go and see them for some of the most beautiful stuff available at incredible prices, even when they don't have some kind of special sale going on with a grouping or a brand name. Every day, those prices are absolutely fair, considering the selection you get and the quality you get and the custom delivery and everything they do for you. Lonnie's Furniture, it's a superstore. They're in the little town of Kimberly, Alabama, right off I-65 off exit 280 in North Jefferson County. Ed Jim will show you some palm trees on the way to the break. We'll be back here in just a minute. Lead on Live Talk 99.5. It's 220 Leland Live, Talk 99.5 down here in the Florida Keys. AJ, I met a dude from Maine today. I knew instantly his accent was different. I was just walking by and said, "How's it going?" He goes, "How's it going?" And as I'm walking away, he goes, "You stand in the park?" It's like, did he say stand in the park? And I knew I was like Boston accent. I was trying to place it, and then I saw his tag. His car tag said Maine, so I may drag him into the show later. He was very conversational. He's from Bahaba. He's from Bahaba, Maine. These guys are getting out of the cold weather down here, but we will. We're going to stir up some characters later in the week with a little more time on the ground. Y'all, welcome back in. Storm Restoration Roofing bringing you the show tonight. That is, of course, Greg Nelson and his whole crew over there, which is his family. Greg, I love that Greg's kids want to do what he does, and he's training them to work hard, even if they move on to other things down the road in life. He has trained them to treat people right, do things right, and that's how you build a multi-generational family business like that. That says a lot. And when your family's name is involved in it, I just find that people work harder for you. They really want you to be happy because you're going to talk about them. You're going to talk about them to your neighbors and friends. They're sitting some cobbled together roofer that just shows up in an emergency that you have no clue if they're bonded. You know what I mean? Sometimes we'll have disasters and people will flock to an area to try to get roofing work. And I respect the hustle, but I don't know who they are. I know who Greg is. He's a straight up guy who's almost 30 full years of doing roof projects. And so he knows the products. He knows all the best products. He knows the right installation techniques. He knows all the insurance companies and all the adjusters and everything. It's a cumbersome process. And it can be an expensive process if you don't do things in the right order. So do things in the right order and call him first before you try to file an insurance claim, and make sure you're good to go. Make sure you found all the damage and you file a proper claim. That's the best way to get coverage. And of course, we always remind you, he's got finance companies that can help you with the whole project if you don't have insurance involved, or help you with the deductible to get that off your back if you've got an insurance claim and a super high deductible. It's Storm Restoration Roofing, and every time I do the spot for Greg and the team over there, I tell you to put his number in a place where you can get to it in case you do have an emergency, even if you're not in the business of taking care of your roof right now. That number is 542-3531, 205-542-3531, Storm Restoration Roofing. Well, let me dive into some more stuff because we'll spend whatever time we need on this Guthrie mystery as things develop. All we have are those new creepy videos, which are super creepy. Let's start with one of the first things I saw today is, and some of y'all are going to be shocked by this, but Trump is 100% named in the Epstein files. And that story broke this morning. And what it told us was Trump was the original whistleblower on Epstein. Back in 2006, he called the local authorities and even worked with the FBI and ratted Epstein out because he was down in Florida and picking up on rumors of what was happening. He even described to the authorities that Ghislaine Maxwell was evil and there was no good coming out of that operation down there. Now, I don't know that he knew all the details, but his sense, his gut, the same thing that has guided him through very successful second term in the presidency, was something's wrong there. And I think it was starting to affect his operation. The idea was that Maxwell and Epstein had been trolling around Mar-a-Lago in the private club and trying to lure women over to that club. Now, there's other stuff in the Epstein files today. And by the way, that just kills the bedwetter narrative. And I've seen people locally saying unequivocally that they're trying to insinuate Trump molested children because they want so desperately to connect him to this case. And there is no connection. There's never been a connection along those lines whatsoever, not a shred of it. And this actually is the opposite information. And those people need to either shut the hell up or be sued. I really think when you state something declaratively like that, as if it's fact, there should be somebody out there gathering all of these people, even the random a-hole on Facebook that happens to live around Birmingham or some network anchor. If you say this stuff definitively, you should be held accountable for it. Enough's enough with this nonsense. We can't even find truth anymore because of people that just say what they want to and make up their own facts. So what is it? The old saying goes, you're entitled to your opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts. Facts are facts. And so that came out today with the millions of documents that are now available. We're just now finding some of the stuff. And now you know, by the way, why the Biden administration didn't touch the Epstein files for all the years they were in charge. They never acted on anything. They didn't push anything forward, didn't disclose, didn't stick anything out there in the world. They just kind of kept it as quiet as everybody before, as the Bushes and everybody else that had been aware years ago about some of this activity. Now you know why they did it, because they didn't want that information coming out. They'd rather have the fake narrative and no evidence that would be mitigating toward anything to do with Trump or anybody associated with Trump. This is largely now. It gets creepier. There are a couple more things that have been discovered in all these files. Stuff that's not necessarily criminal behavior. Like, did you know that Epstein wound up owning this little girl's clothing company called Justice? I sort of remember the brand being around. I didn't raise little girls, but I remember other parents talking about that brand for kids' clothing, and it may still be around. I don't know. They used to have mall stores. Epstein wound up getting that whole chain transferred into one of his portfolios through the guy that owns Victoria's Secret, which was largely part of what got him into this stuff. Then there are the redacted names. So Congress has been able to be exposed to the unredacted files. And you've seen several, especially female congresspeople, going in to examine them. And they're not going to walk into a room and look at all this stuff in an hour, but they're able to look at some of it. And they're coming out telling stories and saying that some of the women who've been redacted, and this is so twisted, who were redacted because probably originally they were victims of this operation. They got pulled into the operation. Those women later became recruiters for the operation. In other words, they were willing participants at one point and were out helping to groom and recruit other girls. And that was what we always understood all the way back to, I remember there was a Netflix documentary about Epstein that talked about that. After the girls aged out, the Epstein folks, Maxwell in particular, would just dump them out where they found them. One girl in particular was dumped back at her trailer where she lived after being on their estate and on their properties for a long time because she'd gotten too old. And some they took and used them to for their outreach efforts to find other people to procure to suck into this operation. This is so sick. Now, some of the female congresspeople were objecting to the names being redacted of the people who became women and became groomers themselves. But in some ways, I understand that because initially they were victims, and who knows what kind of Stockholm syndrome they developed, being almost emotionally and intellectually captive and compromised by this whole operation themselves. So we'll let others who are more expert on these things be the judge. But we continue to get drip information on these Epstein files. And in fact, there's a report today that this Reid Hoffman, who's named 2,600 times in different ways in those files, actually paid for, I think there was a Super Bowl video involving some of the victims and trying to get more information out. And they used Hoffman's money, and Hoffman was in, it sounds like a PR thing for Hoffman actually to try to suddenly be on the side of the victims. I guess if there's any good news, this case is not just completely dead. Anybody that was involved in this needs to be exposed. And criminality or not, we need to know how that was working and what was going on. And I don't know that we'll ever know the full picture, because I still believe most of the most incriminating evidence and all the criminally damaging evidence has long since been destroyed. It's not in those files. There's no way it's in those files. All right, bottom of the hour. We'll be back in a minute. 545-9950. If you want to get on the show, bring it. Lead on live. Here we go. All right, y'all. Here we go again. There you go, AJ. I don't know what that is, but that is I'm feeling
trouble.
that right now. Nothing but trouble. Alabama dental man. If you got nothing but trouble with your teeth. Some people do have chronic problems. You get a lot of cavities. You wind up with maintenance all the time. It's good to, when you've got a lot of dental visits in your life, it's good to have a dentist that's open till 7 o'clock at night, maybe even open on the weekends. That's Alabama Dental. Those guys have spread their hours out. Years ago, they came up with this concept. They said, since we got a multi-dentist practice, why don't we do something the others can't do, and that's spread the hours out and be here late in the evening, be here on the weekends for people. And that works for all of us. Not only with those 4 guys under one roof, you've got different specialties, and that's always important because if they run into something or a new issue, they can hand you right to somebody in the same practice and continue to look into your case and help get you some relief. And then, of course, the convenient hours just make it even better. That's one of my first things that make them so different and better. But once you visit there and get to know the team and the staff, get to know your hygienist and work with your dentist, you're going to love this practice. And it's worth the drive from all over town. They're conveniently located over in Irondale. Y'all go see Dr. Brian. He's my friend and my dentist, and takes care of all of us. And we do appreciate everybody over there at alabamadental.com, alabamadental.com. I've got so many stories to dive into today. I mean, there's a new story that came out a little while ago, and I want to do some digging on it during the breaks before I get too far into it. And I don't want to opine on the air, but it's a new report that Kurt Cobain from the band Nirvana did not commit suicide. People have long believed that case was not properly investigated. So the conspiracy theories have abounded about that case. And now the Daily Mail is reporting a new report that concludes it was a homicide. He was killed. We'll dig into that for those of you that care. That's a very old case, but another one of those death mysteries. While we're at it, it's kind of death mystery the last couple of weeks, it seems, or missing persons in the case of Mrs. Guthrie. But let me get to some other things. We've got congressional hearings going on, of course. A lot of debate about the SAVE Act. The House looks poised to pass it, and a pretty strong version of it. We talked to Gary Palmer about that at the end of the show yesterday. Senate, though, dragging their feet. Murkowski's out. She's bailed on it. I don't know how this woman stays elected. I think it's because Alaska has this multi-choice election system, and I think they still do that there, and it's chaos. And it puts the least and sort of weaker candidates forward. It's a terrible system. I think Louisiana did something like that and got rid of it years ago. But Alaska, weirdly, a plus 12 Trump state, has this insidious, I mean, she goes wrong on everything. So she's out, and you can't get Thune to man up to save his life. Thune just can't find it in his heart to do the right thing and nuke the old school zombie filibuster, they call it. And you just can't get him to actually focus and do that. So the pressure's on. One by one, some of these senators are getting picked off, and we absolutely need to keep the pressure on. And see, first you got to get it out of the House and then continue to turn up the heat. And I've seen many people get behind it. But something else that went on today in the Hill were the Democrats continuing to pretend that ICE is some kind of evil Nazi agency, not a decent, law-abiding law enforcement agency. These are good men and women doing a very difficult job under difficult circumstances, and they keep, in addition to yahoos blowing whistles and confronting them out in the streets, they keep dealing with those situations with regard to the Congress. And so listen to Swalwell right now. Here's Swalwell trying to go at it with the leader of ICE. Lyons is his last name. He didn't stand a chance because the guy's a fool and he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Supposed to protect, or will you side with the killers bringing terror to our streets? Mr. Lyons, will you resign from ICE?
No, sir, I won't.
Why not?
Because, sir, that child that you're showing right there, the men and women of ICE took care of him when his father abandoned him and ran from law enforcement.
Time has expired.
You never should have gone
Gentleman's time has expired. I recognize the gentleman from Mississippi. The guest for.
That was just one of the snippets. I mean, we got many more because it was kind of electricity on the Hill, dealing with all that stuff today. Just craziness, as you know, there's still more and more information coming out on that. New polling this afternoon. We'll get some of that later in the show, where the public's still supporting these deportations. Yes, even by race, geographical region, people not belonging in this country. In fact, well, if you want to get into the Super Bowl show, which was nothing but a finger in the eye of people that want this country to be a little more traditional than a bunch of transgender perverts running around on a football field. By the way, the Bad Bunny stuff is hilarious. The little side note on that, half the audience that was watching the game dipped on the halftime show. They didn't all watch the TP USA show. Some of them did. About half of those did. But of the 40-something million people that were watching, almost 50 million people that were watching the game itself, they all took off and just didn't want to see it. They all went to take a break, take a dump, smoke a cigarette, whatever, eat some Doritos, and ignored the halftime show, literally tuned out of it, and then came back. So, the NFL screwed up. I'm not even blaming this performer. He's just, to me, talentless. I saw an auto-tune video where this guy was not singing with the assistance of all the crap the kids need nowadays to act like they are talented. And he's just basic. But hype is everything in that business nowadays. So he's got the hype, and he got plenty of hype with his little halftime show. But the fallout for the league, and they're the ones that made the bad decision here to alienate the country instead of putting there are plenty of incredibly legendary, talented artists that could have been perfectly acceptable to a larger audience, and they could have kept people. And then the game, I guess, became more of a tune-out factor as it went along, too, because the Seahawks were so dominant, apparently. And so they lost audience as they went along this year, and that is not what they spend the billions on the coverage to do. Now, back to the deportation story. One of the funniest stories, and I don't know if this is true. It seems to be based on some of the reports, but there is an ICE tip line, right? And so the ICE tip line, anybody can call and report, a circumstance where they think ICE needs to know about information. And right about the time of the Bad Bunny halftime show, maybe that's where everybody went. They went to call ICE. There was a spike in tips on the tip line to Homeland Security. Either that, people may have just had enough. They're like, okay, that's enough. Everybody needs to be deported, whatever. Now, I know he's from Puerto Rico before you try to make that claim. But that was a weird little anomaly in the middle of that. Now, another story struck me today. I'm just kind of tucking all these things in there together. Another story struck me today with regard to, remember the National Guard that were deployed into Washington, D.C., and this is a combination of crime surge, that the police surge and the law enforcement surge that Trump was doing in some of our worst cities. Y'all remember how they cleaned up D.C. in a matter of days. Things got better. But part of that was to be able to deploy the National Guard. And you remember that would-be assassin that came up and started shooting those Guard members. And I think if my memory serves, he killed one and shot one that day. And pardon me for not remembering the exact details of it. But I saw a story just on Surface today, just the headline, that the people that were shot in that attack, because they're serving in the military, are going to be awarded Purple Hearts because they were on duty and wounded on duty. And the thing that struck me about that, and I'm sure there have been plenty of Purple Hearts that are giving out from domestic situations, but if you think about that whole dynamic, that a lot of times when you consider a Purple Heart medal, and my grandfather earned one in World War II, you tend to think of foreign conflicts, foreign enemies, foreign situations that people get in. But this was in our country. So think about that. A person serving our military in our country was wounded by an enemy inside our country and earned the Purple Heart. That's a ridiculous place for a nation to be during an incident like that. And I don't know. I didn't have time to go do the research. And some of you may know how many incidents there are like that where things happen. I know you had things like Fort Hood. You'll have base attacks here in the United States that are sort of internal or an external threat, but that it would be the same as foreign combat. It just strikes me as appalling. Not that they got the award, obviously, but that we have to do that we have to award Purple Hearts for people serving here at home because of the maniacs that are running loose in this country and their agenda and their politics. Wow. All right, 2:43. We're going to take a quick break, 545-9950 if you want to get on the show. Birmingham Broker bringing you the show tonight, bhambroker.com. That is Craig and Keith and that whole team over there. Man, they are so ready to get that car sold for you. They need cars. Craig added to his team. He's got some new sales guys. Those guys are so good. They sold everything. I mean, sold everything just about that they have on the lot down there. That means Craig has buyers ringing the phone off the hook looking for specific vehicles, and he's ready to sell one to you. It's for you. It's bhambroker.com, bhambroker.com, downtown Birmingham, 4th Avenue South. Y'all go see them. Pull right into the building. They'll take a look at that ride, get you maximum value, handle all the work. That's my favorite part. I don't want to be haggling and marketing and cleaning up my car and trying to figure out what it's worth and doing all that paperwork. I just don't want to fool with it. Most of us don't. That's why we fall into the trap of just trading them into the dealer and giving the car away to get past it because you're in love with that new car. Y'all let Craig and Keith do it a smart way for you. Sell it top dollar at bhambroker.com, bhambroker.com. We'll be back here in just a minute, Leland Live on the Coast. Leland Live, talking to them 5 All-American Metals. Y'all, this is a great company that can absolutely get your steel building built. And I talk a lot about the residential stuff because that's the kind of building I have. But let me talk to you folks that are in business. A lot of you are out there just working hard. You're wanting to grow, and growth means space. And you need to add on or build a separate building or a whole new facility for your business, whatever kind of business, retail, commercial operations, warehousing. All American Metals can get that building designed and built for you and there's no project too big for them. They've got their own factories. They produce all of the framing, all the secondary stuff, everything that ties it together, and they're ready to do what you need as well. It's All American Metals, aa-metal.com, aa-metal.com. They're over in the Bessemer Hewton area. If you want to go over and visit with them, that's great too, but let them help you get the design done. Once they've done the design, then everything kind of falls into place from there. It's All American Metals, aa-metal.com. The design, of course, dictates your budget, and then when you've got all that pulled together, you're going to need that stuff for all the financing and maybe even zoning and inspections and things like that, but you can really get that project laid out and move forward quickly. What I did learn about steel construction is when you're ready to go and you've gotten through those phases, it goes up so quickly. I mean, you are dried in. As soon as you got your slab ready, you are up and dried in and can start the interior work, and that gets exciting. There's nothing like growth. Nothing like investing in yourself and your business in this economy. Y'all reach out to them at All American Metals, aa-metal.com, aa-metal.com. All right, a couple of other things as we get going again here this hour. We are looking at more reports of explosions going on in Iran. That story comes and goes. It's alive for a minute, then it gets quiet for a minute. We'll just do some international stuff while we're at it. So there's all this speculation as to whether or not the United States would suddenly just attack. Now, I think the so-called nuclear negotiations are still continuing, and you've got to give all that time to work. And Trump has not been putting out certain deadlines, red lines, none of this stuff right now. The administration is quiet, but so people are reading into military maneuvers and activity. We have amassed incredible assets in that part of the world. But there have been a lot of military facilities and assets that are going up in flames and blowing up. Now, does that mean that it's us? May not necessarily be us. Don't forget, the Israelis are constantly entangled with these people, and they have been very creative at using third parties and proxies on the ground with very smart operations. Remember the pager bombs that went off in Libya and how they just lured the Hezbollah folks into carrying around their own little personal bomb devices, and one day they just hit a button and took out a whole terror network. So who knows what's behind these ground level happenings? There don't seem to be reports of missiles flying through the air or aerial raids or any kind of air activity that would necessitate these explosions, but there does seem to be a pattern here. We've got buildings blowing up that are tied directly to the Iranian military warehouses, command and control structures. All of those things are happening. So we'll have an eye on that because it is nightfall over there. And by the way, the protests against that nation continue. These folks are still in the streets. The deaths are piling up. The country is blacked out. The world does not know everything it needs to know about what's happening inside that country. And everything's still on a tipping point with this regime. So all that we can do is hope and pray for peace and freedom for those people. And it's going to take probably a lot of combined efforts. It's not going to be one thing. This is not a situation where you just push a button and you wind up with, you wind up with, people think we can just, my whole life people would talk about Iran and countries like that and say we should turn that place into a sheet of glass and be done with it. It's not how it works. It is much more complex than that. And to topple a regime, because after a regime goes out, you've got to be very wary in that part of the world about what takes its place. Just like Venezuela, you can't go in and insert a Western-backed leader. The people have to choose their next leader. If you're going to topple the oppressor, you got to open it up so the people of that country have the means and the wherewithal to establish their own structure going forward so there's stability. So it's a lot involved other than just dropping bombs on people. So I know the Trump administration's got a very significant and sophisticated group of people that know how to do these things, so we're just going to trust that. All right, let's go to the phones. JT is on a cell phone up next. He's got a call for us tonight. I think that's going to be our first call of the afternoon. JT, what's up, buddy?
I know, just in regards to the Purple Heart medal, it was instituted by George Washington. It is the oldest medal of decoration in the armed forces.
Yeah.
And it is awarded when you get wounded in a combat situation.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. And the award of these National Guard folks is very deserving. I just think it's a horrible statement that they got wounded here at home by enemies here at home, and that's just terrible.
And it was also awarded to the crew of the USS Pueblo, the ship that was captured by North Korea in 1967 or 68. I can't remember. I think it's 67. And the crew was awarded the Purple Heart, and they had to fight for it. I mean, the powers that be, the higher command, did not want to give them, the medal, but they ended up being awarded the medal, which they were very deservingly.
Absolutely.
But I just wanted to put that out, put that out there.
Well, JT, I appreciate that background and that history, man. There's so many folks that love and adore history and are so adept at it, and I appreciate you sharing that with us tonight. Yeah, it's a lot of you're so proud if you have a Purple Heart veteran in your family. I remember being a kid and seeing. I never knew my grandfather. He died long before I was born, but he served in 2 wars. I remember it was in the top drawer of my dad's sort of chest that was in his bedroom. That's where he kept it, in a little box, and that's where it was. And I think my aunt now has it. His sister, I guess those two took turns having it and she's still alive, and I'm glad she's taking good care of it. But it was a thing you speak with pride about, that your family member was willing to make that kind of sacrifice. No matter what the incident, people get into semantics about the types of injuries and where things happen and how it should be. But I don't know, something about here these guys are serving in our capital, in the capital of the United States of America, and they got hurt by somebody that clearly was a mental case and an enemy of this country in D.C. That just, I don't know, it just sat the wrong way with me when I saw that headline. Well, speaking of patriotism, let me shove this in. We gave it a little bit of mention yesterday, but not enough. And it's something occurred to me. Let me go back to these whiny Olympic athletes. It's not all of them, because some of them have been extremely moving on the medal stand. While I'm not watching the Olympics live because it's in Italy and 8 hours ahead of us at all times. And sometimes I'll see highlights or clips, but a lot of folks are keeping up with these political statements being made by these athletes. And I go back to these these two guys and one of the women making what appear to be disparaging comments or dismissive comments about our country while on foreign soil, while representing the nation on the team. And something struck me about that out of the blue. And it was that we all look at it that way, but I think that is also indicative of this sort of selfish era that we're in, that is almost the same thing as the NIL. Can I explain? I think the two are very much related. Nowadays, you've got college athletes that really aren't there for team or school pride or any of that stuff. They're there for them and what they can do, and next season they're gone. And that the NIL has opened a door for that, both with the pay that they're getting and the ability to transfer. Not that I'm just faulting them, but it is breaking up the sense of team first, something above you, and don't be pointing out this individuality thing to the point where it's to the detriment of the people that you're there wearing their colors and the school pride that goes along with it. And then you get to national pride and these people that fight to work hard. These are incredible athletes to make it to this level. Then they go and disparage the very team that they're on with their political thoughts and the country that they're from on the world stage. And it's just selfish. It's marketing. It's setting yourself apart. They're there to cash in on whatever medals they win and try to get endorsement deals after that, or build a following with some yahoos or something like that. And I think they're one in the same story. I think the two, that lack of national pride and decency to not criticize your own nation on foreign soil in an event like this is the same kind of indecency of some of these athletes that are just, or the system that they're just taking advantage of, that's just wrecking cohesion and the things that we loved about these sports. The Olympics have always been country versus country, not a bunch of individuals versus each other, but that's what it's devolved into. I guess the world just got too small while I was not watching. Mike is on a cell phone. What's up, Mike? How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, Leland. Love your show. On the Purple Heart thing, most of the people I served with would consider that a mistake.
Oh, really? What do you mean?
well, you get shot, and my brother was special forces in Vietnam. He has two, and he'll tell you in a heartbeat. Those were just, we messed up. I mean, they're not supposed to get hurt. They're supposed to go in, do their thing, get out. Nobody.
Well, I see what
knows
you're
they're
saying. Yeah, well, sometimes you're ambushed, sometimes they're attacked. I know what you're saying.
Oh,
You don't
it's
want
pride.
you don't want
Yeah,
one.
it's
Yeah,
pride.
yeah.
Yeah, it's pride.
Or
If
you're
you're
John
going to-
Kerry, and you get a piece of shrapnel the size of a grain of rice in your ass, and you get awarded a Purple Heart after begging for it, and then you go throw it over the fence at the White House. There's that kind
Yeah.
of people too. So,
Exactly.
hey, thanks,
Exactly.
Mike. Good call. All right, we'll move on to other things, updates on all these mysteries in the news today too. Leland Live, y'all stay tuned.